This video is going to be a film study look at the impact that three wide receivers are having during the Ravens preseason, two of which are names that most of us didn't know 2 or 3 months ago, one of which is a promising young receiver in Tylan Wallace that I think we're excited to see his progress. And in the preseason, he looks like he doesn't belong. And what I mean by that is he doesn't belong on the field against some of the DB talent that he's playing against. Tylan Wallace, I don't think he has a drop yet, or I think he's 100% on targets to completions, I guess is a better way to say it. Certainly looks like his place on the roster is locked up, but nonetheless, the emergence of Dayton Wade and Keith Kirkwood, who impresses me to no end every time I see him as a big X-type wide receiver. I think he's 6'2", 6'3", been in the NFL for, I think, 5 years, maybe 6, spent 2 different stints with the Saints. Doesn't really have much in terms of statistical impact. I think only like 23 or 24 career catches. Those two guys are really kind of muddying up much of what the Ravens wide receiver room is, where it's set in stone after Flowers, Bateman, Aguilar, 4th-round draft pick Devontae Walker, Tylan Wallace, who I think has been quite impressive in limited reps in the preseason, and I don't think he should play another snap this year in the preseason. I don't really see a need to. Veteran Russell Gage, who struggled with injuries, another veteran Deontay Hardy, Keith Kirkwood, Sean Ryan, who was very explosive and impressive in last year's preseason, Malik Cunningham, and then Dayton Wade, who's the guy that we'll focus on first. I'm not sure about you. I'm impressed with the totality of what's there, the collection of talent in terms of available options. Certainly, most of those guys come on the cheap, meaning the Ravens didn't go out and trade for anyone, nor did they sign anyone in free agency that was going to break the bank or make us have to be creative with the salary cap. We'll go through the film of 3 of these guys that have been the most impressive. In the case of Wade, he's had the most targets out of the 3 up top. It's a stutter go, the touchdown from Emory Jones, obviously. He's an impressive guy for an undrafted free agent. I recall when he was signed or agreed to sign with the Ravens as a UDFA, so many people were impressed with him, and they should be. And I understand it now. I get it, because he's super quick. He's able to change speeds, I think, in an instant. The stutter go is a nice route combination. Look, I watched the Falcons broadcast, and they did a great job of identifying how many times the Ravens were running 10 and 12-yard curls or stops, and then that stutter go really worked off of it extremely well. He does have this one confusing drop from week 1 of the preseason. You can see he's run a little in cut to the right side of the offense, the top side of our screen. Josh Johnson's escaped out of the pocket. Perfectly timed throw from Johnson from the standpoint of his release and how he torqued his body to get to throw off accurately right at the face mask of Dayton Wade. I have no idea if he's had drop issues in the past. I don't suspect so. He looks like a pretty clean catcher of the football, particularly in the game against the Falcons this past week. Nonetheless, that drop is perplexing. This one is a good rep against a very good young corner that I did a film study video on, Natron Brooks. He had 13 tackles last week. I'm sure if you watched the game, you noticed it yourself. Very physical corner, active and athletic. And this is a nice rep where Dayton Wade is threatening the vertical up at the top of the screen. He's trying to get Brooks off. Brooks got great change of direction, great feet. Nonetheless, Wade is able to drop his hips. And I almost feel like this ball could be out a split second earlier, but Leary's trying to make sure that the corner isn't in tight coverage and isn't going to jump it. So I understand. And then you can see Brooks' ability to recover just slightly behind the ball. And Waiton's got good, if you ask me, he's got good hands, smooth catcher of the football. He's able to catch the ball and move on the run, or in this case, catch and secure, because he knows he's got contact coming in the form of Natron Brooks. I think he's got some value potentially as a kick returner. Does that stand up with the Ravens, where we've got so many other guys who are capable of those things? I'm not sure. I think this is a 26, 27-yard gain. Takes a big shot against the Eagles. I like his burst and his commitment on this. I don't know enough about the kick returns yet. None of us do, in terms of how it's going to work out in the regular season. But he looks like a guy who, if they tell him to hit a particular gap, B gap, C gap, D gap, whatever they call them, he will do so at 100 miles an hour. And in this case, he happens to take a big shot as a result. For whatever reason, my order of plays got mixed up here. This is the catch against Natron Brooks that I showed you a couple of plays ago. It's quite blurry, so my apologies. But just to show you the close nature of how Brooks was able to close on it. The all-22, you could see it, but from the end zone angle, I think it also does a nice job of showing you how he was able to control the football despite some contact and presence in the form of Brooks. Down here at the bottom of the screen, it's a 3rd and 9. I'm not as big of a fan of him at the top of this route here. This looks probably like the least impressive example, or the worst, I guess, in terms of him getting into a break and getting out. You can see Devin Leary has already pulled the pin or grenade. He's already thrown the football, and Wade isn't able to get out of his cut here. Now, the ball's thrown too high. We know that the ball should be thrown, somewhere towards the sideline. I would have liked for Wade to get out of his break quicker. He does seem to have real great start-stop ability. So this one is the only one for me that looks like anything where he's a little slower getting from the bottom of the numbers towards the sideline. And again, the throw is super high, so it's not uncatchable ball. Another one against Natron Brooks. This is at the bottom of the screen. Brooks is one of those guys really adept at pre-snap looking at the quarterback from inside leverage. He had the same leverage earlier on pretty much against Wade on the completion. A rematch of that one. Emory Jones is going to try to shoot this thing about 12 yards deep from a vertical standpoint, but you can see how long the throw actually is, even though it's on the near side hash. I feel like it should be there a split second earlier and maybe to the outside. It would have been nice to see the ball a little bit further to the outside in this direction, I guess, so that Wade could have had an opportunity to catch the football, and then we could evaluate his ability to do those things. I think Natron Brooks is a quality corner. I think he's going to make the team in Atlanta, even though they've got multiple guys, quote, ranked ahead of him. Flat route on a 4th and 2 against the Eagles. Broken tackle. This is 4th quarter, I believe, so I understand the talent level, the players he's going up against maybe isn't as impressive as others, but I like him in the slot. I really do. This little shoot route into the flats, whatever you want to call it. Leary getting rid of the ball quick, forcing the nickel defender to go to the top side, and Wade breaks the tackle. When you looked at his college tape, which many people linked up and showed on Twitter and other social media platforms after the Ravens signed him as a UDFA, you saw a lot of this. You saw a lot of him either making people miss and then breaking away, or getting a lot of yards after the catch. I don't know what his speed is. I have no idea what he ran at the combine or if he wasn't even invited. But he's got great burst to me. In the slot again, down here, little hitch, uncovered rule, if you will. Takes a big hit again. Uncovered meaning you've got a nickel or an inside linebacker who's apexed out, blitzing, and so we're totally uncovered. We're just going to throw the little bubble hitch or bubble screen and take off towards the sideline, then read the block on the outside. That's Sean Ryan's on the block. I like the player. I really do like the player. I'm incredibly impressed with him. How does he make the roster? The Ravens, how many receivers do they keep? With this level of talent, look, you can't keep too many, right? I mean, 7 is too many, I guess. But with this level of talent, you sure would like to keep some of these young guys who have ability. Now, in the case of Kirkwood, he's a little older. I think he's 29 years old. He looks very classy and very refined to me. Can he get open against starting level corners? I think he's played quite well in every rep that I've seen him on the field. Seems like an X receiver to me. Is he going to be an X receiver that is going to dominate the football and make big plays down the field? Maybe no. I would almost compare him to Josh Reynolds. And perhaps I'm a little bit biased because I saw so much Josh Reynolds film last year when he played with the Lions. A guy who could give you 35, 40 catches if he had to play extended amount of time. I don't know. That seems like the ceiling probably for Kirkwood, but he looks very classy to me. He looks very good in his routes in almost every instance. Against the Falcons last week, a great route and a great throw by Josh Johnson. They did seem to go at this number 43. I don't know his name for the Falcons, but certainly didn't seem to be the caliber of Natron Brooks on the other side. Getting an inside release. Josh Johnson, back of his drop, pretty much knows where he's going to go to the football already. But look where Kirkwood is. He's on the inside leverage, and he's able to break that guy's posture, who's definitely holding on to him, 43. And Josh Johnson delivers the ball in a great location. I think there's some sneaky acceleration to Kirkwood's game. I don't really know a lot about him, to be honest with you. I recall when he signed as a free agent, a couple of people were talking about him being a talented receiver. I knew nothing at all, but when you watch him play, 6'2", 6'3", got good size out on the edge, good catch radius. I really like this catch against the Falcons. This ball's behind him on a slant from the boundary where he would be positioned often in the Ravens offense if he did happen to make the team and get in the game. This ball's going to be behind him. You also have the inside linebacker widening up and the outside linebacker also widening up to deal with the tight end. So kind of opens that window wide. Josh Johnson's throw a little bit behind him. Great hands, as you can see. I'll give you the end zone angle so you can check it out. Certainly, Keith Kirkwood is not a guy that 2 months ago, 3 months ago, people would have been talking about maybe making the team. Does he really have a chance to do so? I don't know. But he looks great in the preseason against the people that we're playing against. We're going to get one more preseason game. I get the sense that he'll get opportunities. There's no reason for Tylan Wallace to be on the field. I get the sense that Kirkwood will have opportunities and Dayton Wade as well. Last one for Kirkwood, then we'll get to the Tylan Wallace film, which I think is fun to watch from the standpoint of seeing him succeed and play well. I think there's a little bit of grabbiness here from Ringo on the bottom side, and then you'll be able to also compare this with a win that Tylan Wallace has down in the end zone, even though he's not targeted a little bit later on in the video. Kirkwood is obviously making contact with up under the chin of Ringo, so there's some physicality on both ends, don't get me wrong. Ringo does a great job getting a hand in there. I would have loved, from a Kirkwood perspective, to see him be able to finish this catch and get a touchdown and make the decision really difficult for the Ravens about who to keep as the final wide receiver on the roster or who to keep as the final two. All right, moving on to Wallace. He really doesn't belong on the field. He's played limited snaps to my knowledge. I thought I saw him on the field a little more against the Eagles, but I could be wrong. He seems to be way better than the guys he's going up against so far in the preseason. One more look at this deep in route, 3rd and 9 against the Falcons. Josh Johnson throws the ball pretty much directly at this safety, and Wallace does a great job of cutting underneath, pseudo high pointing the ball from the standpoint of his body being on the ground. He's not just allowing the ball to come to him. It feels like he's going up and attacking it in the air so that it doesn't get to the safety. It ends up being like a 31 or 32-yard gain. Long throw for Johnson, who certainly doesn't have the arm strength of our other quarterbacks, pretty much all of them. From the other side of from the other hash, left hash, quick decision, working the ball out here. You've got inside linebacker dealing with the tight end. Wallace, a smooth catcher of the football, doesn't have a ton of catches so far in his career, but in the preseason here, he certainly looks like the best guy that we've got out there. This is a beautiful catch, week 1 against the Eagles, somewhat similar to that throw to Kirkwood, except this is a back shoulder fade. Kirkwood had taken an inside release and then brought it back out to the sideline. This is, I believe, against Ringo once again. And it's not like Wallace is winning on a vertical. Josh Johnson already let go of the football, so he's made the read against man, and an unbelievable catch. I thought we had a second catch. I think it was Sean Ryan in this game that was eventually ruled incomplete. But credits to Josh Johnson. 2 of those back shoulder throws I thought he put pretty much right on the money. Nice and low. It almost reminds me, it's a little bit longer throw, but it almost reminds me of Patrick Mahomes' touchdown pass to Travis Kelce against us in the AFC Championship game. Really low, away from the defender, such that there's just no way he's going to be able to deal with it. Whatever the percent chance is for a catch to be made, the only percentage chance is in the favor of your receiver. In this case, Tylan Wallace, great catch. 19 or 20-yard gain. End zone angle, same play, just so you can check it out. You guys have to let me know if you're... I'm impressed with the depth that we have at receiver this year. It's not that I didn't know that Dayton Wade was a good player. It's not that I hadn't seen the Deontay Hardy film, who really hasn't had an impact at all in the preseason. I didn't know who Keith Kirkwood was. I didn't know that Tylan Wallace was going to be able to step out here. And I mean, that's Keely Ringo, who was at one point, labeled as a 1st or 2nd round pick leading into the 2023 NFL draft. Things didn't work out for him in 2023 until later in the season, but he's going to get an opportunity this year to make plays, and I think he can. And then finally, down here at the bottom side of the screen, now he's not targeted. Tylan Wallace is the X. There's going to be pressure around Josh Johnson in the pocket, so he's going to try to navigate through that and scramble. But compare this a little bit to Kirkwood. Tylan Wallace is slippery, and he's been around. He's been in the organization for a while. He's been in this offense for a year. Wins to the inside, not with physicality, but with slipperiness and speed. And Ringo is grabbing. Obviously, he's got almost, I think, both arms around the hips. Tylan Wallace is still able to escape. Were Josh Johnson able to have time, you're looking at a clear opportunity, if you ask me, for a touchdown for him, which will be his last of the preseason if I had it my way. I don't think there's a reason to see him out on the field. He looks far and away like our best receiver that we have out on the field, at least for the preseason. You may not be as impressed with our depth as I am. That's no problem. And you may also say, well, Coach, I would rather have another high-level guy instead of 4 or 5, what some would describe as average to above average players. No problem. I understand that as well, and I won't argue with that. My point in making this video, and the thing that does impress me, is that we have multiple options to keep on the roster on August 27th, I think 1 week from today, and to keep around on the practice squad, which is why it's smart to bring in some of the UDFAs, especially if they're guys who don't get offers from other organizations. The problem is when you have a guy like Dayton Wade who goes out there in the preseason and looks impressive, has multiple catches, including a 56-yard touchdown from Emory Jones, then now you've got film out there for other teams to see and say, hey, we would like to bring him in if he does get cut 1 week from today. You guys let me know who you would like to see the Ravens keep. And when I say who you'd like to see them keep, I mean beyond Devontae Walker and Tylan Wallace. We haven't even seen Russell Gage yet, other than one target, I think, in week 1 of the preseason. He's a veteran who's got some good tape, some good film out there in previous years. I'm impressed with the group. I wouldn't mind at all if we had a 6'3", true X receiver who could go out there and dominate one-on-one matchups and give us 65, 70 catches on 95, 100 targets. I don't think Rashad Bateman is that big physical target. He's a really good player, and I support him, and I'm glad we have him. I'm glad we signed him for more years, by the way. But my point is, that's what makes Keith Kirkwood possibly a guy that could stick around. Dayton Wade making plays only complicates the issue even more. I appreciate you guys' time, man. If you watched the video, let me know what you think of my thoughts, some of the film that I used to try to illustrate the impact of these guys. 3 different receivers. Kirkwood, a classic X receiver, not as fast, not as explosive, but really good, if you ask me, at getting to his spot. Wade, shifty, twitchy, explosive, start-stop ability. And I think Tylan Wallace, kind of a combination of the two, but a very professional and experienced receiver who has a year in this system. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this content, this film study look at what I think is a packed and difficult to evaluate Ravens wide receiver room, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.